morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Reverend Alderman Davis, would you be so kind as to give us an invocation?
I will. Let us pray. Most gracious Lord, we praise and thank you for the many blessings you bestow upon Southport, unseen and seen. We ask today that you guide us to make good and right decisions for the betterment of this city, all who live here, work here, and visit here. Amen.
Mr. Clerk, is there any people who have signed up for the public comment?
No one signed up.
Okay. And a motion. A second, is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. The first agenda item is the street opening. Tom Z., would you be so kind?
Good morning. Really, the only reason street opening is on is because at the last meeting, when I was here to talk about it, we talked about it, had discussion, and then there was never a motion to introduce it. So all we're looking for today is a motion to introduce if you want to have the street opening ordinance.
Is there any discussion for Tom Z.? Not hearing any, I would entertain a motion to approve the motion as revised. I'm sorry, got the wrong piece of paper in front of me. A motion to approve the street opening ordinance.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed street opening ordinance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the second topic is the streetlight map revision. Larry, you're up, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and Aldermen. What I would like to request is a refactoring of the current street policy map to include sections of St. George, Barrington, Clarendon, and Caswell and Lord. The reason being is this is where we've currently done the undergrounding, and we are moving forward with conversion of the removal of the overhead and conversion of the lighting to individual streetlight poles. And the currently approved Autobahn fixtures that were designated for those areas have proven to be unacceptable for several reasons. So we would like to use the acceptable fixture that we have, the Southport Special, in those areas to complete removal of the overhead and undergrounding. So we would just extend the blue area, the waterfront and downtown designation to, again, St. George and portions of those other three streets.
Is there any comment to Larry?
I'd just like to say that the subcommittee has met twice with staff and Brunswick Electric, and we agree with this change and are glad to answer any questions from our fellow board members. Otherwise, I would make a motion and then we could ask the questions.
You can make a motion and we can ask questions then.
I'd like to make a motion to modify the streetlight plan to include West St. George Street and the blocks between West Leonard and West Brown within the waterfront downtown area. This area is part of the current underground electric project. Also, update the streetlight policy map to include the designation of Port Haven Way as an HOA/POA subdivision. So those are a couple of small modifications to the streetlight map.
There's a motion and a second. We're in discussion phase. Is there any discussion?
Why would we stop at that section instead of running it all the way out to 14th Street?
I thank you for that question, because your subcommittee is going to continue to meet, to review, to bring back additional recommendations. This is what needs to happen in order for them to complete the current ongoing underground project, which will give us time to review and come back to you.
These are also expensive. So as the underground electrification is happening, the old wooden poles and the old lights don't work. And so we have to come up with the right thing to put in. First of all, just to accomplish the underground lighting, and second, to provide something that's aesthetically pleasing but meets state law on the requirements for lighting. There has to be lights at every intersection, for example, and every, how many feet?
Well, it depends on the light, but generally the blocks are about 400 feet, so we need to be... So generally the blocks we measure are about 400 feet. So to maintain the candle light, the foot candle light illumination to the ground, it's probably about 150, 130 feet each. And we have to move it around a little bit depending on foliage, et cetera. But we have to put one in the middle somewhere, even generally, at least one.
Apologize, but turn around there that's not the standard, the light sitting outside on Bay Street there, that's not our standard downtown light, is it? That coupling that's face down, is that what we're looking for? That's not the Southport Special you mentioned, right?
The Southport Special is the one that's in the waterfront areas and down. We just put some in on West Moore Street. That's the one with the concrete pole.
Yeah, they look like a bell, a copper bell.
All right, I'm sorry, is there any more comment? I have a comment, and I'll wait to the end. And my comment is, we're setting up, right now, one might think we're setting up the have and have-nots. So over 50% of this town has already got underground. So, because they paid for it in their housing and when they bought their house. So if we're only going to do this during places where we're going to replace the overhead to the underground, and they're going to get the nice lights, and something happens to one of the other lights in the town, what do they get?
I'm glad you asked that question. Or Robert, you go ahead.
I think, something to be said there is much of that 50% is HOA. So HOAs in some cases have their own standards as it relates to lighting. So, for instance, the lighting at Price's Creek, we'd never take that lighting over simply because each of those fixtures probably cost about 100 times more than what we're looking at for the downtown. So that's my answer. But Karen.
Well, I guess my question is, Robert, is this. There are HOAs that have that, and they have their own lighting, But for all the others that do not, are they going to get the same replacement light as the ones that are in the old section of the town or that you're approving now?
Currently, that is not our plan, but we are going to be reviewing our plan to look at things. Part of the reason, in the case of what we're talking about and the motion is about today, these homes sit so close to the street, and so the height of the light, the Audubon lights, and correct me if I'm wrong, are about 5 feet higher because those aluminum poles, right now is how that was done, those aluminum poles were that much higher.
Yes, that has a factor is the way the arm extends and then the angle of the light itself. And yes,
They're
it's a little higher.
And so for now, that's what we're taking care of this for now, with understanding that there's further discussions we're going to be having and meeting and further input about all of that conversation.
And
But
I do
cost
think
factor,
that Audubon lights is a perfect name for these because they are ideal for highways and airports and so forth. But a particularly frustrating thing is that, sort of like iPhones, every year or so, something's discontinued that you're counting on, and then now you have to look for, well, what else can we use? These that you see now downtown are discontinued. Now there's something similar, but we're going to have to look at a shield, and we probably will have to put it in because the light bulb comes down much further, and thus it sheds the light further. But the old one is no longer available. So at our next meeting, we're going to try to look at everything that's available everywhere to see what we can find that's suitable. Initially, the area for these was the nationally designated historic district, and the House Street is going to get the unfortunately named Audubon lights for obvious reasons. Brunswick Electric has promised to try to save as many of the existing lights that we now see in most of our neighborhoods that are long ago discontinued, but as they take those down or anything happens, especially on House Street. I was leaving for church in Whiteville early enough yesterday, Sunday morning. I was the only car on the road, and I took the opportunity to drive about 5 miles an hour and look up and see what all the street lights were. And some of them are the Audubons, and some of them are the old ones. And I'm hoping that we can save those, as many of those old ones, so that as we progress along with underground, or if something burns out in a neighborhood. For example, I was using Robert's neighborhood, his street corner.
Old lights.
He's got old lights now, but if one of those burned out, underground's not there yet. So what are they going to put up? Unfortunately, they've put up the Audubons, which really are inappropriate for any neighborhood.
I think you missed my point. Larry knows this because I stood on the ground and I saw the Audubons in the neighborhood, and they're absolutely hellacious.
Oh, yes.
They're hellacious. That's not my point. My point is this only addresses a select few in the city. If somebody else's light gets broken, somebody runs into the pole, whatever happens, a hurricane, I don't care. Pick your choice. What's going to replace it? You're saying if you're not in the select area, you're going to get the Audubon light. I'm saying we should consider if something breaks, they get the same light as everybody else, since everybody's paying for the same lights. We're all contributing to this, and the goal should be to replace the city, not because you are living in one section and you get the benefit of the extra money and cost, when somebody over here pays the same taxes and does not get that same benefit. So I would like you to consider changing the motion to say, for replacements, you'll get the same light as,
Well, I think that, you know, when you sit in the space, it's a little different than coming back out here and trying to educate everyone so quickly on something we've been working on fairly diligently. And so, yeah, and so, to Lowe's point, I don't think House Street's gonna get the Autobahn. I think they're gonna get the dome. Is that, the long-term goal there is that they'd get the same dome units that everywhere else downtown gets.
When you look at the policy map, they're blue, and they would get the same
Okay.
as downtown.
Okay, and so then, and to your point, we do have these replacements that are for poles like in historic downtown where we have 50-plus-year-old poles. We're not going to replace that pole and light until we go underground. So there, we're going to put back an auto, I don't know if it's the actual Autobahn or if it's a,
Well,
but they're still in keeping with our color temperature that we require.
Right.
They are aesthetically damn ugly, but but they are dark skies. So we're trying to go back with something temporary on those until we come back with a permanent. So then we have to take into consideration these other neighborhoods. So in downtown, the homes are set closer to the street, and so therefore that spill and there's trespass with the same light we did it. We put the light in there, and it was frankly horrible, but that would look very different in a neighborhood where the homes are further off the street, and that light might.
they're horrible.
So,
Well, I'm not saying that light's appropriate by any means.
That's horrible.
We're not
And
saying.
if they're going to have to be sitting there for 30 years while we're waiting to do something on that, that's just, to me, unacceptable.
All of our underground should be done by 2030,
35,
30,
32, I think.
32,
or
okay.
35.
So there's no area that's going to be the case. And again, most of what we're talking about, everything else would, for the most part, is in a HOA where we don't own the lights.
But no, that's just simply not true. There's lots of HOAs that you do own the lights. In fact, most of them you own the light because you took them over when you took over the streets. Now, you have the river mist, and that's an unusual entity. How that created, I have no idea, but it is what it is. And there may be a couple of others. But for the majority of them, if we took over the streets, we took over the lights, and we took over the stormwater. We took it over at one time.
We met, just sort of to address a little bit of what I think you're trying to ask is that, number one, the HOAs, if they have the acorns on them or whatever, we're matching those back. We're not sticking those lights in an HOA if their lights are compliant, if they're with our ordinance and the lights that we support. So those get replaced. Like in your neighborhood, y'all have acorns on the black poles. Those are replaced with the same like kind because that's consistent with our ordinance and what we said. I think the big conversation about the Audubon and what we're still meeting about is there going to be an alternative substitute for those temporary situations? And so that's what we're going to be looking at with different fixtures that Lowe has already mentioned. So we're going to be bringing more information back to you. Appreciate your comments, but
just to clarify, you just mentioned a temporary solution, the Audubon lights. Those are being placed in permanent settings with the exception of the ones is that not true?
We use the Audubon lights in the city in various places right now, and we would replace them with like down Fodale and every other place in that area. They're there. If we have a sodium light that goes out, we have no replacement if we can't fix it, and we will use one of those. They're on the wooden poles, and they're mounted lower, so they're not as intrusive in most cases. We cannot mount the Southport special on those poles because the arm and all are specifically designed to go onto the concrete pole.
I'm not suggesting that we
Okay.
go throughout the entire city and replace all the lights.
Right.
I don't mean that.
And we do
I mean,
have
if
those in
something
inventory.
breaks on a light, if I heard you correctly, Larry, and please tell me if I'm wrong, you're going to replace it with that god-awful pole light that you and I have had this conversation. Is that what we plan to do?
The answer is yes at this point. It
Yes,
meets
it
the
is.
ordinance, and we can't repair the sodium. If we can, we'll repair it.
But in the meantime, if I heard the timeline correctly, for the next 10 years, you'll just have to live with it.
Well, most
Is
of
that
those
what I
streets
just
are
heard?
underground, if I'm, some
Well,
of those.
they're not mounted on the aluminum pole at 30 feet in the air, so
Larry,
there
they're
is a
terrible.
difference.
They're
Yes.
terrible. I don't care if they're at 25 feet or 30 feet, they're terrible lights. And it's not, you're
don't
not
disagree.
shading
We all
every part
stand
of the
up.
city.
We all
hold
agree,
on.
we
My
all
turn.
agree. I think we all agree that they're ugly. One of the issues,
I don't.
okay.
I don't. So we don't all agree. I'm going to stand up for the dirty old light. Okay, somebody has to do it. Cape Fear Drive has that light. You went underground on Fodale, you put that light, you put it down Cape Fear Drive. I've never seen it look as good. I haven't heard my mother complain about it. Nothing's fell on her house like they tried to when they disconnected the wood poles. So things are actually good over in that area. I haven't heard any complaints. So this is, like Robert said, it's the closeness to the road is those are affecting. But I don't want to buy a new light and then a year or two later change it because the itch has come in that we've got to change a light.
The thing is, I think you're asking about style of light and what it looks like, basically. And the Audubon is, I think everybody will agree.
No.
No, you don't think that they're aesthetically awful? Huh?
I don't think it's terrible. It's actually, the trees now grow on Cape Fear Drive, it looks good. People can see when they walk to put the trash can out of the road. When they walk to the road to put their trash can out, they can see. I haven't heard any complaints from anybody.
Yeah, and so the other thing that we have to take into consideration is if we went with this blanket concept, which, I struggle with, because then we will have a new dome light with an old sodium light, or soda light, what is it called?
Well, there's sodiums and mercuries and halogens.
And then an
have a
Audubon
mixture.
light. You could essentially end up with that on the same street.
Robert, you'd have it with your program. You'd have a sodium light here, a blinding runway light, and a sodium light there. That's what you'd have. And I'm saying, if you're going to replace it with anything, the one that's broken, I'm not asking to go replace it, because the lights that are there. But if something breaks on it, it should be replaced with the same light that one part of the town gets the benefit of, and the other parts of the town do not get the benefit of.
The issue is
They're
that
setting
those
up the
lights are
haves and the have-nots.
That's not at all what that's not at all.
Isn't that what, Larry, isn't that what you just told me, that if light breaks and you're going to put in the ugly light?
So first of all, in the existing overhead, if a light goes out, it's on a wooden pole. We would not go stick an aluminum pole in with a light on top of it. We would replace that head with one of the available lights that are recommended in the policy. And we've done that, and there is a mixture of temperature, but this one meets the requirements, and to be fair, I don't get any complaints about intrusion or trespass or anything else. When we do that, they are mounted below the power lines and not separate on top of a pole, which is a little higher, like 25 feet up. So we use them, we have them in inventory. We can't send them back because they're a specific color temperature for the city. And we would like to continue using them until we come up with a better solution for everyone. That's really the key.
The other issue is to Lowe's, well, everybody's, I think, has made the point that these are discontinued so frequently. So the very lights that we already have, in many cases, are discontinued. And we're out, in fact, I think this one does not match what we currently have, which Lowe prefers this one.
So the newer ones that we purchased, as technology changes, the cartridge inside is a different shape. It casts the same amount of light in the same directions, but there are methodologies to eliminate one-off intrusions into folks' houses, and we can do that.
All right, this is a term that I use often. There's the laws of man and there's the laws of God. The lighting policy is a law of man. If it's too bright, then it's too bright, and we might have to look at that as well. Because I'm telling you, that light, I don't care what little meter you put under it. I stood there, and the neighbors all came out, and they stood there. You wouldn't even know there was a sky.
Are we referring to Clarendon?
No, Burlington.
Larry referred to policy. We're reworking the policy, but the first thing we have to do is, among other things, take care of this, because the underground's going to be at a standstill if we don't deal with this. But right now, we're also, at our next meeting, we hope that we will have a catalog of everything that's available. Oddly enough, there's not a whole lot of variety. So our goal actually is what you've called for, some uniformity across the city that does not even imply that there's some kind of have or have not. The idea is for a uniform look to the city and something that pleases everybody but meets all of the legal requirements for lighting. Among other things, there's height. You have to leave enough room for tall trucks to get through, like electric trucks. But in a hurricane, the big tall trucks that come in, they've got to be able to get under the arm of the street light. And then we have a very specific color, temperature, all of the lumens and this, that, and the other, to make these as soft and unglaring as possible. The policy is a work in progress, and I would love if other aldermen and the public would come to our next ad hoc committee meeting while we're sorting through all of this. We don't want to make one area of the city look better than another area. Let me put it that way. And we don't want to poke people in the eye with a glaring light.
Well,
I think part of this could possibly be solved if we look at the lot size and setbacks for each of the areas and then consider the lighting appropriate based on the lot size and setback. Because as Alderman Spencer was saying, down where he lives, the lot sizes are a little bit larger, setbacks are a little bit further from the road. Where I live right now, it's kind of somewhere in between what you guys have in the historic downtown district and what we have on the other side with Cape Fear Drive, Fodale, and some of the others on that side of town. And I'm kind of somewhere in between that with a smaller lot size, smaller setbacks, but not nearly as small as what we have in the downtown historic district. So I think, to me, Mayor Alt, I understand, I think, what you're saying, and I agree that it doesn't necessarily need to be this bright light that we now all know is unacceptable, and I don't think that we should use going forward. But I think that what would be appropriate where Alderman Spencer lives is not necessarily the same thing that would be appropriate where Alderman Carroll lives, and it might not be appropriate where I live right now either. Because of the way the light comes down, I think if we're trying to get the same color temperature across town, that is a good first step to say, okay, we want this color temperature regardless of what it is. Let's take away the stadium lighting in the areas where the setbacks are this, rather than a broad blanket, and pick a beautiful light fixture that'll go everywhere. But I think that if we're looking at it, it's looking at it based on what the setbacks are more than broad blanket across the city.
I think, and I appreciate that, Rebecca. I think that's something that we attempted to take into consideration in this. Just to Lowe's comment, and I think this is one of the issues where I struggle, because I hear some people say this across the board. I hear some people not so much, but I've heard that we want to designate the signage in the historic district to look different than areas outside of the historic district. So to me, you know, where do we stop with that designation of that, if that's the argument, in fact? So if the argument is, and frankly, we can get ugly lights, there are plenty of them that cost just as much as the pretty ones. So it's not a matter of have or have not, it's the same cost, or could be the same cost depending on the fixture. Although the lighting out of what you saw was insane. I don't want to.
We've beaten this horse pretty hard. What I've heard is that at least for some period of time, some drunk takes out a pole. They're going to get the stadium light on a wooden pole at a different height, and that could be, Robert, up to 2035. That's what I heard. So if that's what the board wants to do, then that's what the board wants to do. I just want to make sure that we all got it out in the public eye that that's where we are.
Yeah, but but I want everybody to know that it is our intention. I hope everybody's intention on the subcommittee to continue to look at that, because I agree with everything that both you and Rebecca have said. I think I've said the light's ugly. You know,
and we are looking for alternatives so that, you know, the light is taken out by the proverbial drunk, and right now we don't have any options. What are we going to put in?
And Lowe's,
we're now looking for something else.
But Lo, that argument, I can't get my head around it, because you already have a selection for the next set of lights that are going to go in the historic section.
we have 36 lights, if I'm not mistaken, for the current project in place.
That's correct. The remainder of the lighting where we're trying to extend into that area and down East Moore Street, we'll all have the Southport Special, and we have those materials on hand for the most part. This change will cost us a little bit, but we can absorb that in the current budget. But the other areas, the lighting that we would use is not at a higher height. It's just replace the head at the current height. So the lighting cast is pretty much the same on a little light arm on a
Which is also key. It's still going to be ridiculous, I think. But yeah, no, 100%. But the aluminum pole is 5 feet taller than.
Yeah, right now the light stands about 5 feet taller with that aluminum pole. Now, as Mark pointed out, you know, if you go down Fodale, they're set off further in the woods and they're not as obtrusive. And people, I mean, I've had folks down there that when they go out, they want them back. They appreciate them. So there are different pictures for different places. The other piece of that is we have a majority of these on hand, so we have an inventory that we have to use somehow, and unless we're not going to use them anymore. And we do have those fixtures installed all over the city, and they do go bad, so we got to use them up. But our plan is not to order anymore. Is to come up with an alternative.
And we currently have 32 of those, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, for the historic and downtown area, yeah, we got about 32 of these of the road lights, and we have about 32 or 36 of the others.
And I would say that we make an agreement of this board to not order any more of these ugly lights so that we don't have to use them. We find a solution that again, fits with kind of what Mark says his neighborhood feels like now, plus our aesthetic that we're looking for. Could we agree to that, to make sure we buy no more of those lights?
That's why we're meeting, continuing to meet. But part of the answer is that the reason we're not putting individually dropping and replacing a pole with a new dome bell light randomly, like say on Atlantic where it's not underground, is because all of that gets redesigned as part of the underground project. The reason, for the same reason we're replacing as few poles as is possible that we can get away with. That's what's determining where the underground goes, is who's in the worst shape, how many poles are rotten, and yada yada, right? So we can't just randomly, it would be the wrong thing to do to randomly stick a cement pole and a bell light to replace these random sodium lights that are not part of already an underground project.
And remember, at our next ad hoc meeting, we're going shopping. We're going to see all of these, everything in the world that's available that would not bankrupt the city. I mean, these things do cost a lot.
Well, and the point is, we have to inventory and stock these because there are specific color temperatures that are not stocked by our support folks. So we have a shed with many lights in it that accommodate the whole entire city and the HOAs, as you pointed out.
If you have an HOA that we do or do not control the lights, is there any conflict between what the HOA has and what the city has, or are they fairly similar?
So we have 4 designated lights included in this Autobahn, which is off right now, but they do not conflict. They're the same, with one small exception, but we won't talk about that here.
They're mostly very similar heads, Frank.
Where I live, we just like to get some lights.
The most important thing for us today is to deal with this section where underground is waiting to get going. And can we at least okay this part, with the understanding that we are in the process of working out what we're going to do in the rest of the city?
We can do whatever the board wants to do. We could sell the other lights and put it towards the $1.6 million hole that we have. We could do lots of things, but rather than beat this into the ground anymore, my comment has been responded to. So I'm happy that it's been responded to. Absolutely not, but that's okay. This is democracy, and we'll move on to the next topic, and and life will go on.
I don't know how, I will tell you that one of the big conversations that was had as part of our last meeting was really budget conscious. And the fact that we have 32 of these others that are temporary lighting, and I know temporary could mean 10 years, which we've now pointed out, but I will also say that I appreciate the mayor and staff and this board for reacting to the issue that was taking place over on Burrington and Clarendon. So thank you all.
A number of those folks came to, was it our first ad hoc, to talk about this? I think.
Oh, they're still talking, and I was standing there Saturday, but with all of that said, is there any other comment before you vote? Not hearing any. All in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye. Aye. Okay, good point. Could you reread it as you understand it?
So the motion is to approve the modification of the streetlight map and policy.
Alderman Marcel, I believe you were the one who made the motion. Is that your motion?
With the details in the packet, I'm assuming that's what you meant?
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, there's the motion. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? It's unanimous. Let's move on. No, I will never beat Alderman Mosteller. All right, the next thing is the manager's report.
Manager's report, February 3rd. First of all, we had a meeting with FEMA officials on PTC 8 reimbursement, its authorization that we received. Staff met with FEMA regarding our PTC 8 reimbursement. The goal was to begin this relationship with our point of contact to streamline the final submission of all costs and damage claims. Discussion also included use of our completed CCTV work, which is now done. Good job, Mr. Stanley. And also our stormwater mapping that we have ready and positioned for a PA 406 mitigation and 404 mitigation grant, which would mean significant funds to upgrade the stormwater system. So the opportunity in PTC 8 is to recover our costs and pursue the mitigation grants that would bring in millions of dollars to upgrade the system. These meetings will be weekly with FEMA until all paperwork and site visits are complete to receive our reimbursement, and we've met the contact on the mitigation grants, and we'll schedule meetings going forward with that, turning over our documents. 2, Hammocks HOA submitted a formal request for road adoption by the city. We provided the Hammocks with the requirements for road acceptance and are awaiting their response. 3, Mosley Architect in Old City Hall. A walkthrough was conducted with Mosley that determined that the building is of sufficient size to meet public meeting space and police needs, both current and future. Mosley is preparing documents as part of their current contract, including a preliminary cost estimate for a building. They will assist with grant options as we move forward. This does require a board decision on use before any design work can begin. That's where we're at now. 4, the new right-of-way ordinance update. To date, staff identified 67 cases that will receive a courtesy letter during the courtesy period between now, that should read June, with the 85% of the city canvas. Now, we've updated that now. It's at 75 cases, I believe, and about nearly 100% of the city canvas, correct? Okay. I sent you a report on that. We are current with our action plan timeline in the courtesy period, leading to the full implementation in June. FY 23-24 audit, our auditor will be here February 13th to present the audit. The delay was due to the complexity of the water sewer merger, according to the auditor and our finance director. I am in contact with the auditor regarding the budget, and we expect a clean audit opinion. 6, Indian Trail Crawl Space. A structural assessment was performed on the Indian Trail crawl space and floor system. The city was given a report on cost estimates and is awaiting a proposal on design. At that point, we'll have an idea of the cost in more detail. 7, North Lord and West 11th Street storm drainage installation. You can see city crews out. Stormwater improvements are ongoing and are not waiting for mitigation grants or FEMA reimbursement. We have our Public Works crew out there now repairing storm drainage. So we're approaching this as we move forward without stopping to await the grants, and we have the money in the budget to do it. So North Lord and West 11th Street, city crews are finishing the installation there to alleviate nuisance flooding. 8, the weather tower. With the design work completed years ago, now that funding is secured, SHPO permit applications will be submitted. Once the permit is in hand, we will obtain construction quotes and look ahead as to some plaques and things of the best way to move forward with that. I want to add, since I submitted this report, an update on the North Howe Street Overlay District. And a report was sent to you last night. City staff and our consultant and Brunswick County staff have met to discuss the North Howe Street Overlay District since the ETJ loss in July. The county staff do agree to pursue the overlay as part of the new Unified Development Ordinance, though not as a separate text amendment. We will continue to update you on the final language of the overlay and the final time frame for the update of the UDO. Finally, you have in your hands the proposed budget book with a balanced budget. I will be sending you a budget presentation document that outlines the strategy to balance the budget, and I'm finalizing that with Mr. Flint now. Thank you.
I have a question. I was looking at the right-of-way list of addresses that will be given a violation letter. It's not including some that are pretty blatantly obvious. Is this everything, or supposed to be everything?
It's not 100%. It's a work in progress, but I can certainly have staff look into any. Please send me any areas you think of we've missed.
All right, next is the mayor's comments. I'm going to follow up on that. So we had a 6-month grace period, but we haven't sent the letters out yet to anybody, correct? So they won't have, will they have 6 months from the time they received the letter, or will they have 6 months from the time that we enacted the legislation?
Well, the letters, courtesy letters going out, have gone out, correct? Yes.
Okay.
So they've gone out.
All right.
And I believe it said June.
Yeah, the
End of July
manager
would be-
corrected that. He said,
That's a
he said
typo.
June, yeah. In reference to the old courthouse and the decision, that's on Thursday's discussion. Tom Z? You're giving a presentation on that on the 13th, are you not? The old courthouse?
If I hear back from the consultant from Mosley.
Okay, so for everybody's edification, we're waiting for Mosley to give us something so we can come before this board and give you all the options of what's there. Okay, I just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
Would that include other uses in, either in addition to or instead of police department downstairs?
There'll be additional information to be able to make those decisions, yes.
So,
You'll be given, we'll all be given information to decide what we want to go, what can physically fit in there as other than the police department, which we have confirmed can fit in there. Okay? I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on this thing on the overlay, because up until we got this letter, the people that I have polled so far on the board, I admit I haven't polled everybody, we all thought that those were separate and distinct items. But now, if it's tied to the UDO, it's basically useless because it's going to be a year from now, if at that. And we can see already at 12th Street and 12th and Howe that there's a potential for a 75-foot building going up there already. And so this is pretty much dead in the water. And that's unfortunate. And that's not because of staff, that's just because on the county side of the equation. So It is what it is. And on the weather tower, the SHPO permit applications will be submitted. When?
They were submitted on Friday.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Can I add something for the public listening in? SHPO stands for State Historic Preservation Office.
And with that, we'll go to the board comments, and we'll start with Alderman Lay. Alderman Spencer.
Nothing today, sir.
Alderman Kelly.
I had a couple of citizens who live near the North Lord and West 11th Street stormwater installation that we were doing, asking me if the storm drains were low enough compared to the street to make sure that the water is actually going to drain into them. So I would just ask that we double check that before we cement everything in, run the pavement, or however that works. So I don't know enough about it to speak to it in a way that makes sense, but I did want to bring that to everybody's attention, so please, thank you. And then the North Howe Street overlay district for the entry corridor, who gave us the information that said it would only be tied to the UDO rather than us to be able to do a separate text amendment? Because that could be something that we as a board can go and help talk about to perhaps move forward.
My understanding is that is from the planning staff. Is that correct?
Could you restate your question, Rebecca?
So I'm curious as to who gave us that information, that it could only be done as part of the UDO rewrite rather than a separate text amendment for the county, because I think that as a board, we might be able to go and have conversations to help that along, because certainly I agree with the mayor, because if we're waiting a year for this, we might as well stop trying to do anything.
If I might, thank you very much. Like I said, staff and West McLeod met with county staff on Thursday. This county staff indicated that they are not going to bring forward a separate text amendment from staff. They're not able to bring anything forward. The planning board is asked to wait until the UDO. So they are willing and to include it in their UDO update. They are hoping to have a public copy draft by June-ish, and are hoping to have something by the end of the year. Yes, I know that that's sped up and a lot of wishful thinking, as we all know with UDOs. We can, as a city, move forward and request this text amendment, but we would have to have the permission of all of the property owners to move forward.
That is assuming we're still operating on the assumption that Senate Bill 382 is going to be the law of the land, correct?
No, regardless, if we move forward as an applicant for a zoning change such as that, the county would have the ability to do that, but us as the applicant, we would have to have the permission from the property owners.
So Mo, would it help for us to contact the county commissioners, the planning board at the county level, to help facilitate this, to potentially have the county see how important it is to bring this as a text amendment?
I mean, certainly it cannot hurt. Staff has gone to staff, and they've been directed by their boards to not accept any new text amendments. So that would be our avenue now at this point.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we're doing everything that we can also, and you guys have done a fantastic job trying to get that through on your end. We got to push on our side too.
So, Mo, before you sit down, just as a statement, just in case you want to comment on it, is that I've spoken to a couple of the planning board members, not the staff members, as early as this past week, and they were under the assumption that they could move forward with that. I'm not sure that they were made aware of that either. And for Alderman Kelly's response, we could go back to them as well and see where they are on this whole thing. If they're in favor of moving forward, and they can talk to the commissioners as well as the city talking to the commissioners, Maybe we might be able to move this, maybe we may not, but if it's going to be a year from now, all of those lots will be sold, and the building paperwork will go in, and welcome to Myrtle Beach.
If I may, we still have to wait until 382 is reversed. So at this point, it's still only in the House committee.
Yeah, but I'm willing to put a $100 bill right down here, right now, that 382 will be removed in the next 2 months. So waiting 2 months to do the paperwork, to figure out what the words are, yada, yada, and then start moving forward is an issue that the city has suffered in the past, and we're not prepared to go forward with things until the very end. We do things in linear fashion, and we need to do the world in a parallel fashion. This is not a statement against you or the staff. It is something we just have to start working on. But there's no sense working on it too much if the county's not going to participate in the game. So I think it's incumbent on us to see what we can do and then make sure that you're in the loop on that. Okay?
And I want to assure you and the board that we have been working on language, and we are currently working with county staff to get language together. So that has not been stopped.
Thank you, ma'am.
If I may, the good news is the county staff agree with the concept. Where it is stalled, okay, that's the question. I agree with you, Mayor Alt, that this is urgent. We're seeing more development moving quickly, and we cannot wait for the UDO to amend. We need an alternative plan, whether informally, approaching planning or commissioners on the text amendment, or did you say formal application is an option? Yes. So I don't think we should wait.
But the formal application is only an option if all of the property owners agree to it. And I think that we have seen the writing on the wall that that would not be a thing at this point in time.
Understood.
All right, we're up to Alderman Lowe. Davis.
Thank you. Of course, I have something. On a non-controversial note. Come on. I know, I'm disappointing you all. Tomorrow from 5 to 7, be here or be square, because this is the annual Women's Club Student Art Show. And it is the art students from South Brunswick High, and their works have been judged. They are uniformly wonderful, and it means so much to these kids and their parents to have people come and look at their things. The 5 to 7 is the reception. You get to look around, compliment the kids. It's something that we should be there for. And it's drop-in. You don't have to be here from 5 to 7, but this is your time to be here whenever you can. And second, a reminder that Black History Month Symposium is this weekend, starting Friday night. And the big event that really caps it off, and it's standing room only here, so get here early, is Sunday at 3 o'clock right here, and that is the Gospel Fest. And finally, I'd like to suggest that we start thinking about having a workshop on the uses of all of our city buildings. We have some underused buildings, we have some buildings that are overused, and perhaps we should be starting to think about, well, I guess perhaps selling or combining or changing uses of some of the buildings. I don't know about all of you, but there are several that I wonder why we're spending money on to try to keep up. And as it goes, we seem to just be like ducks nibbling away at the things that each building needs. Let's look at all of them and see, do we really need this building? Is it serving all the uses that it could possibly serve? Or would it be better for our budget to perhaps sell it?
I like that idea. I think, and we've got a point from the we had done. So, with regards to the overlay, I think that we should be calculated in how we go after that, and I think that the mayor should head that up. Perhaps one person, you attack the commissioners, and somebody else, the planning board.
Well, I would, if I was going to go do that, then I would want Alderman Kelly to be part of that, because she has a good relationship with a number of the commissioners.
Yep, because it ain't gonna be me. Yeah, and that, well, and
I think I was just voluntold to do something.
Well, and I personally, because of her connections also to the planning board, would be comfortable with the two of you having that conversation with the planning board members as well, to the best of our ability. I just don't want us to go in with 7 different voices. So that would be my only recommendation on that. And then as far as the budget, I just want to say thank you to staff, to department heads, to the manager, and this board has a lot of work ahead of us over the next few months. So.
Alderman Mosteller.
Going back to the conversation about the overlay and where are you with the language? Are you close to having language that then could be discussed more tangibly with the planning board members? I think that would be important. So if we could have access to that and where you are in all of that process.
Yes, I think that we're very close to have some language together that could be distributed to the planning board. Again, after our meeting on Thursday, there were some questions that county staff still had that we want to work through so that it's compatible with both zonings, and there's going to be some give and take, obviously. But I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks we'll have something.
Because that certainly will give you a way better chance to have that conversation.
Thank you, and I'm going to stretch the rules here by just making another comment, and that is that while we have sat here and had disagreements about policy issues, that's all good and healthy. At the end of the day, we'll be calling each other up and having conversations about other things, and we move forward. So don't let a debate about a policy issue have people think that, oh my God, they can't move forward. We're moving forward. We are moving forward on a lot of different, there's a lot of balls in the air right now. And that's all good stuff. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
The motion and a second. Is there any comment? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We stand adjourned.